Good evening. I'm Alan Robinette with the Saline County Library. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Facebook program this evening. I'm here with Miss Ashlyn Ohm. She is an author of A Year in the Woods, which is a 52-week devotional, which basically goes through and she's done a blog for years and was convinced to make a book and a project out of this. And I'm so excited to bring it to you. We're coming to you this evening from Capacci's Cafe and Coffee in Hot Springs. So we meandered a little bit down the highway into Garland County, away from our Saline County home, to beautiful downtown crime-free Hot Springs. So I'm so glad that you all were able to tune in with us this evening. Ashlyn is an extraordinary writer, and I say that with all due respect. I'll start with a confession. I expected when I picked up this book and I thought, oh, this is going to be really cute. This is going to be a really nice book, and it's going to read very much like those 365-day calendars where they have a cute little quote and it talks about her connection to God and spirituality. And this is going to be really nice. And it is nice. And it's kind of not cute. It's got a lot of depth to it, and I've just been really impressed. And I told Ashlyn the same thing. I've been really impressed with her writing and the amount of work that she put into this. So I hope you'll enjoy this program as much as I'm going to enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you all for being here. We have a live audience here this evening. Hello, everybody. Hi. Say hi. We've got a good crowd here tonight. So thank you all for coming out. And Ashlyn, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. You bet. Many of you have known Ashlyn for years. And so it's kind of strange for me to introduce you all to Ashlyn, but our Facebook audience maybe doesn't know all of the things that she's accomplished. And so I'll start out by saying, first of all, she's a follower of Christ. And that's where she centers herself every day. And she finds that in nature, and she sees that in all things. She was raised in rural Garland County, fell in love with nature at an early age, was fortunate enough to live on a beautiful, beautiful plot of land, and was able to explore every day, and still does every day, I imagine. So this is her first book, and she calls it a love letter to nature. And I think that's exactly what it is, and a love letter to God. And I think that's also exactly a very apt description. So first of all, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
It is a beautiful package. By the way, I'll start by saying that this is the book here, and it's an absolutely gorgeous. All the photos are yours. Yes.
Most of them are mine. Yes.
Right. So yeah. So beautiful writing, connects it back to scripture, has a good message. So I think your book does what all good books do, which is that it fills a gap. It fills a void. It's something that is there that wasn't there previously. Talk a little bit about what inspired you to take this blog and these writings and these thoughts and say, I want to branch out and send this to a greater community.
So I began my blog in April of 2019, and I had been blogging for about a year and a half. And I was actually approached by a reader of my blog who really loved my writing and loved the message. And she very kindly and graciously offered to partner with me financially in the production of a book if I was willing to undertake that. And I, of course, said yes. And since I had a good number of blogs, I had a year and a half's worth, and I published twice a month. So I didn't need too many more to get enough to be able to format it as a yearly devotional with one per week.
Okay.
So at that time, I went ahead and divided up what I had by season, saw what deficits there were, and wrote some more blogs to fill in and began formatting.
Okay. And that decision was blank. Scary? Exciting?
Very exciting.
How would you describe that decision and the days and the weeks that followed?
Well, I think it was just, it was very awe-inspiring, because it was just amazing to me that this, first of all, that this lady had this much faith in me. But secondly, I knew that it was a call from God, and it was very humbling. It was very profound, and it was something that had been a dream of mine for so long, and so to have it coming true was just really amazing.
Ooh, okay. And the product shows that. It really does. Now, any kind of writing like this, even though you had a pretty good jump start on
Right.
it.
Yes.
It can be an all-consuming
Yes.
project. And I wanted to ask you this. As you were, let's say you start the process, you know this is going to be a devotional, you know you're reading the books and you're out on a run.
Yes.
You're doing a jog, you're seeing something in nature. Did it kind of get metacognitive at some point where you're
Yes.
like, I'm going to write about this later?
Yes.
How did that,
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that.
That is a constant. Yes. Just about any time I'm outside, I am filtering through what I'm going to write about, what I'm seeing, what I'm learning. But it's part of who I am, because writing is so much a part of who I am. I can't really separate that out.
Does it affect you in the moment? Did it affect you in the moment? Did you have to learn how to overcome that? Because sometimes there's so much beauty around us, and that I could see where, well, you tell me, in the beginning, did that kind of, knowing that you were going to write about it later, it becoming not just your existence in the moment, but did that hinder anything?
No, it really enhanced it for me, because I just love writing so much that it taught me to observe better, to be more present, to be watching for these opportunities and these things that I could write about. And so I think it really added to my experiences out in nature versus detracting from them, because I did have that eye and heart open to see what was out there.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned the eye, because the photographs are just gorgeous.
Thank you.
They really are. You've done a really good job of putting the package together and putting the right photographs with the right words, and then tying that to scripture. It really is a beautiful package. And you have a wonderful grasp of the language. I must tell you that. Now, most writers who write well and have a good grasp of the language are also born from good readers.
Yes.
And avid readers. Tell me about that. When did you start reading? When did you become a devourer of literature? Because I'm sure that happened.
I can't remember when I wasn't reading. I really can't. My parents read to me every day of my life, even before I was born. And I don't remember not being able to read. I have been reading all my life. I love to read. I next to writing, reading is my love. And as you said, I devour books and magazines and articles and blogs and all kinds of content.
What is that part of the advice you would give to somebody who maybe thinks they want to be a writer?
Absolutely. Read a lot, and especially read in the genre or category that you're going to want to write in, because there's no substitute for studying really great, well-crafted writing. There's really not.
Okay. And I know a lot of advice that I got as a writer, and I am not a writer. I'm a poet, but I am not a writer. I've never written anything long form, so I greatly admire what you've done here. I was told, write about what you know. You know, if you're going to write a short story, if you're going to write a poem, if you're going to write a book, write about what you know. And I think you've done that. And what you did is that you knew nature.
Yes.
And you tied that to what lessons that you wanted to teach, and maybe some of the stories and parables that you wanted to get across in your writing. Tell me about growing up in rural Garland County, and how that affected you, and how it still affects you as a writer.
Well, it was amazing. It was just really wonderful. I was blessed with two fantastic parents who made sure that I was outside, and who unfailingly told me to go play outside, and I did, and I loved it. And I was always outside doing all kinds of things down by the creek with my dogs, in the woods, hiking. There was not a time. Also, just like I can't remember not loving to read, I can't remember not loving to be outside. And I was exposed to a lot that is often missing today. I'm sure.
And your parents are here. I will ask them later if they ever had trouble getting you inside, because I'm willing to bet that there's a story there too. One of the things that you wrote, and there's so much I want to cover here, and we just don't have enough time, but one of the things you wrote in the book is that trials aren't meant to reduce us, they are meant to release us. And I thought that was a really good. What trials have you had in the publishing of this book and in getting published?
Yes.
And how has that released you in a way? What have you learned through that process? Because Let me tell y'all, this is a thick book. This is 300 pages. It's not in 18-point type. It is 300 pages of a lot of material. This is a lot of work. How did getting something like this? It is self-published.
Yes.
Okay. You had an editor?
No.
You are the editor?
And my mom.
Wow, that's impressive. It really is, because I go through with an eye for detail, and it is impressive that you are the editor. It's hard to self-edit.
Yes.
It is hard because you're the one who wrote the mistake.
Yes.
So when you see the mistake, you just skip over it because you've already seen it. It is very difficult to self-edit. That's very impressive. Were there any frustrating parts to this? How long did the entire thing take? And tell me about maybe some of the frustrations.
Right. So when I was first approached, that was in July of 2020, and the book released in September of this year. So
wow,
this was, 14-month process basically.
Okay.
And there was so much more involved in it than I had realized, than I had known went into publishing a book, because, as a self-published author, you are the publishing house, and all the tasks that are distributed among all the staff at the publishing house come to you.
Yes.
So cover design, formatting, interior layout, technical aspects like checking to make sure all the photographs are at the right aspect ratio, checking to make sure the PDF is formatted so when the printing happens, it doesn't look weird, and the marketing, the shipping, all of that.
The typesetting, the font, every single
yes,
detail, the margins.
Yes.
Everything had to be just, it has to be all consuming at some point.
Yes.
And yet it was a passion.
Yes.
It was
absolutely.
something you felt like maybe, I don't know, did you feel like you wanted to do it, or
Absolutely.
did you feel like you needed to do it?
Both.
Okay.
I felt very strongly about the importance of it, but at the same time, I loved doing it so much.
Right. Okay. Well, I wanted to talk about a couple of passages. The first one, warmer winter.
Yes.
Because of course we're getting ready to, who knows, hopefully have some snow this year.
Yes.
I know how much you love snow.
Yeah, I do.
This may not be an opinion that is shared by our greater audience, especially those who drive for a living. But I love snow. I'm right with you on that. What captivates you about snow? And maybe tell me a little bit about that passage.
Well, snow is probably captivating to me in part because I don't see it very often. If I lived somewhere, like you said, where there was plentiful snow, or where, I was required to drive, maybe it wouldn't be so great to me. But because it comes so seldom, it's just like a miracle. And it's so beautiful. It's so peaceful. And snow has a way of taking a landscape that is very harsh and very barren looking and not very beautiful, and transforming it into something wonderful. And that's the same thing that God can do with our lives. So I think that's part of the power of snow for me.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember reading, it may not have been in this story, it may have been in another one of the stories. You were in, I think, Estes Park.
Yes.
And you were talking about, the snow, it's just so beautiful. You must love living here because of beautiful snow. And I think somebody snarled at you, maybe?
She let me know that no, snow was not wonderful, and Estes Park in the winter was not a good place, not a place she wanted to be.
Right.
And she thought that living in Arkansas, I must just have it made in the shade because I had these mild winters and I didn't have any snow.
Right. And here you were wanting to go out and feel that and see that, and loving the snow and lamenting the fact that you maybe on a good year get 4 inches of snow, right? Because we just don't get that a whole lot here. And you actually explained the meteorological reasons that we don't in the book, which is, again, I love the technical detail that you put in the book. I read the wonderful interview that you had with the Sentinel Record not too long ago, on the front page of the Sunday Sentinel Record, by the way. And that was one of the things that you talked about there as well, is just, how much detail had to go into the book. And I think your grasp of the language and your ability to circuitously bring that back to an overarching theme was one of the more impressive things. And you quoted Socrates in your book.
I did, yes.
How about that? How about that? I mean, really, contentment is natural wealth. That's a very simple statement.
Mm-hmm.
How many words is that? 4 words. And yet it says so much. What does that say to you?
Well, I think that there's a level at which people think that they will be happy if circumstances can be manipulated to fit their ideal. But those who can find their contentment in the Lord, those who can find what they need in Him, that's wealth. Because no matter what happens, no matter what you face, you know that you have the Lord, and in Him you have everything you need.
Why is that so difficult, even for believers, to grasp?
Well, I think it's because we have a hard time letting go of our version of the story. And we have a hard time releasing what we would want to see or what we think the best plan is, and just accepting what God has for us.
So what you're saying is sometimes we get in our own way.
Yes.
Preacher, I have no idea what she's talking about. I wouldn't understand this at all. No. Yeah, but I think you're right on, is that, sometimes we forget that we can't see around corners.
Yes.
And God does. And that's a really important thing to remember. Trapped in a Puddle.
Yes.
There's a story here called Trapped in the Puddle. There are some wonderful titles, and I love the alliteration, by the way.
Thank you.
I don't know if that had to be on purpose. Loved it. Loved the alliteration with it. But the story, just to kind of preface it a little bit, is that, and jump in anytime if you want to, but there's, you're out in nature and you see a puddle, and you see that the puddle was once connected to a spring and then to a
lake.
A lake. And yet there's a little microcosmic galaxy in this little puddle. And the idea is that if there are fish or other creatures, if they knew that right beyond this puddle, maybe, within a few steps, is this greater, huge pond that they could have a much more full existence, and yet they don't.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that story, because that was one of my favorites.
Well, I think that we can all relate to being trapped, or to feeling like we're trapped, and to being caught in something that is far less than what we had hoped, and far less even than what God has for us. And I think that this is a tragic story, but it happens to all of us, that we become trapped in a small existence instead of fully being able to partake in what God would want for us.
How, just in your experience, have you ever had that happen personally?
Yes.
And how were you able to break free from that? How were you able to see, maybe not see beyond the puddle, but to learn to accept the parameters of the puddle? How, or is that a correct way to phrase it? Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I understand. I think that before, when we try to live on our own without God, and this would apply not only to those who maybe are not believers, as you said, but also to believers who are just trying to do things their way. I think that we become trapped by ourselves. We become trapped in our minds, our situations, and just like the fish in the puddle, we don't have a way to get from where we are to where we could be. And that's where we have to have the grace of God to step in and to make that way and to make that path to carry us to this incredible existence that we can't imagine. And so I think oftentimes it's just a matter of getting out of our own way and letting Him make that way and open that door for us.
Did you ever wonder at any point during the publishing of this book how you were going to get from your puddle back to the pond?
Yes.
How are you going to get from point A to point B? There had to be some moments that were discouraging.
Absolutely. Yes.
How did you overcome those?
Because I had such faith that this was what God had called me to do. And I knew that the invitation for this book to be had come so miraculously and so unexpectedly, and had come even at a very difficult time for me personally.
And for a lot of people, this is July of 2020.
Yes.
A lot of people were struggling in July of 2020 for a myriad of reasons that we all can recall.
So in the middle of this dark night came this invitation to do something that I had dreamed of doing and never really saw a way that it could be done. And just with no warning, with no efforts on my part of trying to make this happen, it just happens. God just opens this door. And so that gave me faith that the rest of the process was directed by him and was led by him. And what he had called me to do, he was going to make sure got done. And I prayed daily over this book. I prayed that those who read it would just feel him, that he would be there over the pages of this book, and that he would be guiding me through the process, making sure I did not make too many terrible, horrible mistakes since I did not know what I was doing. And just praying for his wisdom.
Every step of the process and every part of the process, the publishing and the marketing and the writing and the photography and I'm duly impressed. I really am. I have to ask you about Gailey. Gailey is her puppy.
Yes.
And there is he does get a chapter, which I think is fantastic. And I think what you were trying to get across from that is that you had at one point decided that it was in Gailey's best interest if you took him out and gave him a walk, and that would be your gift to him.
As well as for the preservation of my house and my belongings.
And your sanity.
My sanity, yes.
How did that gift to him turn out?
Well, I had an idea that Gailey would just go at my pace and he would just stay right by me, and we would just go on this hike, and we would, accomplish all of this mileage that I set out to accomplish. And that's not what happened, because Gailey likes to be a little more circuitous as he hikes and stop and investigate everything and
Gailey
look at everything.
Is adorable, by the way. I don't know if y'all can see that here. Facebook, hold on. That's Gailey, and he is just precious as can be. There we go. There we go. Okay, I'm sorry. Please continue.
Well, I learned that hiking with a dog, I couldn't go at my regular pace. And at first, this was extremely frustrating to me, especially, when Gailey would stop to look at everything along the way. But then I started realizing that if I went at Gailey's pace, instead of trying to make Gailey go at my pace, then I too was able to experience the wonder and the excitement that he had.
Mm. And you used one of my favorite phrases, and I want you to extrapolate on it: the tyranny of the urgent.
Yes.
How often are we consumed by, taking it away from Gailey here and getting it back into the just every day? Mm-hmm. This has to be done.
Right.
This has to be done now. This needs to be done yesterday. Mm-hmm. We need to take care of this. Mm-hmm. There's a deadline. We've got to meet this deadline. This is important. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're faced with this all the time. And I think maybe Gailey taught you a lesson about that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's very prevalent in our society, especially because we constantly try to do too much, and we take too much on. And I think a lot of times we find our worth in how fast we can move. And I know that that's something I'm guilty of at times. And I had applied this mindset to hiking. Even, how many miles could I cover? How fast could I go? Could be my pace per mile? And Gailey forced me to take a very different approach.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and it helps you to be able to stop in the moment and appreciate what's there. There's a very funny comic that has a man sitting on a bench, and he's got thought bubbles, and he's thinking about his work and his projects and all of these things that have to be done because of the tyranny of the urgent. And the dog is sitting next to him, and his thought bubble is that moment. Mm-hmm. He's just right there in the moment and looking very much at peace, where the man is looking very angst ridden. Yes. And I think that's a lesson we can all learn, is just to, we're given every moment.
Yes.
And being stressed out about what's coming next or what's around the corner or what's around the bend maybe isn't quite as important as appreciating what we have here.
Yes.
What we have now.
Yes.
And that's again, the way that you bring these stories in, and you're just out in nature on a walk with your dog, and you're able to bring that story around to something that is universal and relative and something that everyone can gain from. I think is I can see why you were called to do this. I can absolutely see why you were called to do this. I wanted to finish up by asking you to acknowledge some of the influences that you had, especially your mother.
Yes.
You had talked about how she read to you when you were younger, but I think it also goes a whole lot deeper than that.
Yes, certainly.
So talk a little bit about that, and about maybe some of the ways that your followers and some of your friends and some of the people who have read your blog post have encouraged you, and maybe
Yes.
give them a little bit of appreciation for that
Absolutely.
too.
Yes. So I was homeschooled from kindergarten through 12th grade, and my mom did all of that. My mom is an amazing, wonderful teacher. She's my best friend, and she has taught me to write, taught me to do everything with reading and writing, taught me to do everything. Let's just stop there. But she has helped me at an early age to become a writer who was careful, a writer who could plan well, could develop well, who could take a thought and move it through the process of writing. And she has spent untold hours helping me write, looking at writing projects, reading things for me, and has just encouraged me all the way. And I'm so thankful for her, and I love her so much. And my dad did not do anything in the way of reading and writing for me, but he is wonderful, and I love him very much too.
Well, that's it. It really is. I think the thing that I came away from this book, it's one thing, and again, like I mentioned earlier, you have a love of the language, and that comes through. And it's one thing to write a book that has a whole bunch of impressive words in it, right?
Yes.
And that's great because you know these words. You choose the correct word. And if the smaller word, the less impressive word is the one that needs to be used, you use that. I had to look up a few words. And I thought, okay, I don't know what that means. And then I looked it up and I thought, it is exactly the right word for that context, you know, and that takes a talent, and you write with a maturity beyond your years.
Thank you.
You really do. And I've been very impressed. How can people get a hold of this book?
Yes.
And how can people subscribe to your blog?
Yes. So I would love for everyone to subscribe to my blog. I publish short writings just like the ones in here twice a month, usually. And I also have a podcast where I read the blogs aloud so that people who don't have time to read can just listen as they're driving, as they're doing different things. All of that is available on my website, which is wordsfromthewilderness.com.
Okay.
And this book is also available for sale there. You can order it online and it will be shipped directly to you.
Okay. Okay. And I'm sure Susie, I forgot to give you credit earlier. Susie is working the chats. And if you'll put that, can you repeat that website one more time?
Yes. That's www.wordsfromthewilderness.com.
Okay. And Susie, if you'll put that in the chat for us and get that out to everyone. I encourage everyone to purchase it, not just to support a talented young writer, but because it's an important work. It's an important book, and it says a lot of things. It says some things that have been said, but it says them in a way that is so relative and such beautiful poetry in her words. And so I really encourage everybody to visit the website, look at her blog, check out some of the things she's doing. Ashlyn is a very talented young writer. So thank you, Facebook audience, for being with us this evening. I really appreciate it. We're going to stay here a little while and sign some books.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ashlyn.
Thank
I appreciate it. Well done. Thank you so much for coming out. Does anybody have any questions for Ashlyn? You must have some questions for Ashlyn. I don't generally gush like that. I finished chapter 1 and then I just immediately texted her and said, wow, you know, because again, I wasn't, it's embarrassing to admit that I wasn't expecting that, but she's a young writer and she's writing about her love for Jesus, and it was just going to be a cute book. And it's not, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of literature. And it caught me off guard a little bit. And I told her, I don't want to read the other 51 because I want it to last all year. So I went through and I kind of cherry picked a few things, but I've already had 3 relatives who want me to get a book for them tonight, have it signed. So we're going to do that. It's like a good book. You don't want it to end, right? I mean, and so, and I figure, you know, I'm getting towards the age where hopefully I'll read this through in the next year and read one, you know, because again, it's done by the season. So week 1 is week 1, right?
Yes.
You know, the summer is the summer in this book.
Yes.
And by the time I get back around to week 1 again, I'll have forgotten because I'm just that age. So I'll go back and I'll read it again for the first time next year. And I truly enjoyed enjoyed getting to know you and getting to know the book.
Thank you.
It really has been something else. So come sign some books for me. And if anybody has any questions, please ask.
I know, so just a little piece of.
That's her mom.
No, not yet.
Chivalry's not dead. Call me Derry. Great. Thank you for doing that.